Hey everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and it is time for the full in-depth review of the Galaxy S9 and the Galaxy S9 Plus. So right here I have the coral blue Galaxy S9, and I'm filming on the lilac purple Galaxy S9 Plus. So I've spent a lot of time with these devices. This is a month later, and I've really had a chance to see what are the goods, the bads, and the uglies of these phones. So hopefully I can help you decide which one is for you, if you should go for the big one, the smaller one, or maybe neither. So let's check them out. So here we are back at my desk, and I want to start off this review with some conclusions, and then I will address my thoughts individually, and you can jump to the time codes in the description, or you can watch this whole review. So the major question to ask myself is, are these devices worth your money? I know that the update feels very incremental. That's really how it's been for the past several years. What I can say is absolutely yes. These are the best Galaxy S devices that Samsung has released so far. So if you do not already have a newer generation Galaxy phone like the Galaxy S8, or you've never had a Samsung phone and you really want to jump in and try one and see what it's all about, this is a great place to start. So after seeing these and what Samsung has done with them, I'm actually more excited for the Galaxy Note 9. So that's the device I would hold out for personally. And then as far as which one you should go for, if you're not interested in the Galaxy Note 9, I would completely go with the Galaxy S9 Plus, no questions asked. You've got that bigger display, bigger battery, and better battery life. You've also got more RAM. There's also a second camera, although I think that's kind of debatable as a reason to pick this phone. I'm honestly more a fan of a wide-angle camera instead of a telephoto one. But if you're wanting to go for a cheaper price point, this is definitely a good one to go for. So let's jump into the look and feel of these devices. We've got three of them right here. These are two S9 Pluses and the Galaxy S9. I really wanted you to see the different colors. At least these are the ones that we have for the US market. So we've got midnight black, we've got coral blue, which seems to be the one color that changes all the time, but has the same name. And then we've got the new lilac purple, and this personally is my favorite. Now these devices are absolutely gorgeous. This is as good as it gets for Samsung, I think. I really like how the bands are not kind of a glossy reflective look anymore. They're more of a shimmery matte finish. And it matches really well with the back color of the glass. So it's the same for the coral blue as well. And yes, I realize that these are very similar looking to the Galaxy S8s, and you really can't tell too much of a difference aside for when you look at the back. That fingerprint sensor is finally in the proper place. And the bottom of the phone is actually flatter than it is on the Galaxy S8s. You can see this is more rounded, where this one is more flat on the bottom. There's actually a little bit less bezel as well. So the screen doesn't feel so centered right in the middle of the phone. And I actually like that it's a little bit smaller here at the bottom than it is at the top, because I feel like it gives it a little bit more character. Otherwise, we've got buttons in the similar place as last year. You got the volume rocker, the Bixby button. Yes, it's still there. Power button, you got the SIM tray at the top, just the same, microphone at the top. At the bottom we still have our speaker grill and microphone, as well as USB-C charging port and the headphone jack. Yes, still a headphone jack, one of the only phones that still has one. Thank you, Samsung. But we've got those stereo speakers. So that is a major boon for this device. And obviously we have the dual camera on the back. Then lastly, not to forget about the bevy of sensors that are at the top. It's the same as last year. We've got the LED notification light. We've got the IR emitter for the iris scanner, ambient light sensor, proximity sensors, the receiver that now pairs as a second speaker. We've got the front-facing camera and then the iris scanning camera. You can actually see that that iris camera is now opaque and hidden, where this one is very obvious. Now, the only gripe that I have with the design of these phones is actually becoming the curve. Yes, the curve looks absolutely stunning. It's really a nice aesthetic appeal, but it used to have more of a utility to it. Yeah, you can still access the edge panel from it, but you don't need a curved edge for this to happen. So the issue that I'm having is that palm rejection really isn't so good. So when I'm holding onto the phone, I'm often executing things. I'm hoping they can release an update that's a little bit more careful with edge detection. And also when you're watching media, it's still a little bit distracting. Still, these are some of the most gorgeous looking devices that I have seen. They just have a little bit more polish over last year, and they actually feel better in hand over last year as well. You can actually feel more of the frame than you could before. This really felt more like a slab of glass, like you really couldn't feel the frame. Now you can. It's got more of that Note 8 type of feel to it. We've got Gorilla Glass 5 on the back, also Gorilla Glass 5 on the front. This is IP68 water and dust resistant. You've got the whole package. So how about the durability of these phones? It's kind of funny because these are very nice and slippery. They've got a really nice oleophobic coating to them. And so these have both fallen off my desk several times, hit the metal on the way down to the floor, and they're perfectly fine. I dropped this guy at a restaurant, it hit a step, hit the floor, and I don't even see a mark on it. Now, I believe it's going to be durable for those types of indoor circumstances, but I'm not going to trust this with outdoor type circumstances anytime soon. With some very non-scientific drop tests, I've seen that it fares a little bit better on the front than it does on the back. This seems to crack pretty much immediately. So what do I use and what do I recommend for protection then? Well, I've always got my Rhinoshield crash guards. I love these. I've used these for a very long time because I love to see the back of my phone. So they have these for the Galaxy S9 and the S9 Plus. But I actually want to give a shout out to Rhinoshield for sending me these guys right here. And these are their solid suit cases that they came out for the S9 and S9 Plus. You still get that 11 feet of drop protection, but you've also got a case that has a full back on it. So if you feel like you need more protection, that's what these are for. I also like that they are really protective without being extremely bulky. That is my massive major complaint when having a case. So we've got them in carbon fiber and also in the classic black. They will be releasing this leather finish as well. It's a really nice snug fit, good looking case without being really bulky. And please make sure to stay tuned for the review that I'm going to do of this case where I also do a drop test. So thank you so much, Rhinoshield, for sending these out to me. So check them out in the link in the description. So now let's move on to talking about some of the new features of these devices. And the one that caught my attention first is called Intelligent Scan. And we've heard a lot about this, especially in regards to the answer to Apple's Face ID. And I've heard the gamut about how this feature works, so I spent a crazy amount of time testing it myself and also bugging Samsung about how it works. So this unlocking method is designed to be able to work in all lighting conditions with either the iris or face unlock. And it's also designed to work if you have a mask over your face or part of your face is covered. So in that case, it's going to use the iris scanner. I tested it in dark environments, light environments, and with different facial situations. So here's what I found in combination with what Samsung told me. So when you turn your phone on, it starts with the iris scanner, and if irises fail due to the lighting situation, it looks for a face instead, Samsung told me. And what I found is that it continues searching until it finds either one, your irises or your face, or it will just time out. It does not need to use both iris and face scan to unlock. It just needs one or the other. And you can test this for yourself by closing your eyes and covering part of your face, like your nose and your mouth. So when you do that and you hold the phone up, it's going to unlock with whichever one you show it first. So it's always looking for the best situation to unlock, which is a good thing. And I find it to be very clever. And what's interesting is that even in the dark, it can unlock with your face if it doesn't find your irises, such as if you close your eyes, purposefully close your eyes. So as long as you keep the auto brightness on, the screen is going to get intentionally brighter so that the camera can try to recognize you. So you can force it to unlock in the dark with your face by closing your eyes. So what I'm saying is, yep, you don't even need to have your eyes open for the facial recognition portion to work. And so this shows me why this is not very secure. It doesn't seek attention of your eyes for anti-spoofing. And Samsung will even tell you that Intelligent Scan is less secure than pattern, pin, iris, or fingerprint. So it's really meant for convenience and speed and really not security. Although what I found interesting is that they do use Intelligent Scan for something other than unlocking the phone. And looking at Samsung's own documentation, they say, please note, for payment or financial services, iris scan will be activated first, followed by face scan to prevent spoofing. And so they call this cross-sensor anti-spoofing and mention that it looks at both your irises and your face to detect liveliness. So in order to find all this stuff, I actually went to Samsung support pages for multiple countries because the United States really didn't say anything at all about how this feature works. So when actually using the phone, I found it only mentions this cross-sensor anti-spoofing in Samsung Pass. So you can see right here it says iris and then using Intelligent Scan for additional security. So it's using the iris and then it's verifying with your face too. So it's weird because they say they use this anti-spoofing underneath Samsung Pass, but it doesn't mention it at all when you're using Samsung Pay. It only uses irises. So it's been very frustrating and odd researching all of this. It makes me wonder if Samsung even knows how this works. So obviously Intelligent Scan is not as secure as Face ID on the iPhone X, but how fast is it? And so in everyday use, I'm actually finding that it's pretty much just as fast as unlocking with Face ID. So if I just turn them on, hold them up, they're both unlocked. So it is a very quick unlock method. And I found that the only time I really have issues with it unlocking using this Intelligent Scan method is if I'm out and about and I'm walking. So sometimes if I'm not still enough, it'll have a little bit of an issue finding my face or my irises. But otherwise, I've been pretty impressed with how intelligent this is and how it really looks to see what the type of lighting situation is and what part of your face is showing. So my biggest tip, if you're going to really use this, is to keep the auto brightness enabled so that if you are in darker environments and if for whatever reason it doesn't recognize your irises, it'll boost that brightness to try and illuminate your face enough. It really does work in just about any situation. So now moving right along, talking about noteworthy features on these phones, we definitely have to talk about these stereo speakers. This is the first time Samsung is putting stereo speakers on their phones, and I have to say that it's about time. So if I could describe the speaker experience in one word, I would say sweet. So these are AKG-tuned stereo speakers with surround sound with Dolby Atmos technology, and they say that it's Dolby Digital and Dolby Digital Plus that's included. And hands down, these have got to be some of the best speakers on the smartphones that we're going to be seeing this year. And they said it took quite a bit of engineering to get the top speaker to be viable. So this is not a gimmick. They spent a lot of time on this, and it really, really shows. So finally, the sound experience is matching with the visual experience, and as any content creator will tell you, that's completely necessary. So upon really testing these out and listening to these, I found that the bottom firing speaker is quite a bit louder than what we get through the receiver, but still it creates a really nice stereo effect. And thankfully, I haven't experienced any distortions or clipping at higher volumes. I did notice that the speakers on the S9 Plus are just a little bit better, at least in my opinion, to the Galaxy S9. I feel like they're just a little bit deeper, a little bit wider sounding. But still, they both sound very, very similar, and you can't go wrong with either one. So yes, these speakers sound great just by themselves with what Samsung has done to them, but it's also stepped up a notch with this Dolby Atmos support. It's actually right here underneath your quick toggle settings. You can hold down on this and it brings you into the Dolby Atmos settings. You can toggle it on and off, and then you've also got options for auto, movie, music, and voice. I mostly just leave it on auto, as I find that it ends up favoring the movie mode anyway. It'll help choose the best mode for you. And at first I thought this would probably be just kind of a gimmick, but oh my goodness, this makes a very, very big difference in movies. So I'll be watching a movie at the highest volume, and I don't find it to be particularly loud for my taste. But when I turn on the Dolby Atmos setting, it makes it much, much louder and with much more character. So we've got a bigger feel of stereo separation and a wider sound stage. And there's also a bit of a surround sound effect to it as well. And I really appreciate that it does this without distorting the sound of the audio. And I'm sure it would sound even more amazing with dedicated Atmos content. It's too bad that this doesn't have Dolby Digital Plus 5.1 Netflix support like the Razer phone does, because that sounds truly amazing and 3D. I hope Samsung can work with Netflix to make that happen. Now with this Atmos setting on, you can connect it externally. You can connect it to Bluetooth speakers or your headphones if you want to. And I found for me that the Atmos setting really works well for even improving more upon these already great speakers. But I don't really like the Atmos setting for headphones or external speakers. And it's really going to depend on the sound signature of those speakers and also your own personal taste. Now, as far as listening to the phone through the headphone jack, yes, we still have this headphone jack. I am not an audiophile by any means. But what I'm seeing is that it has a flat frequency response, and it's also got very low stereo crosstalk. And it also supports high-res audio, so you've got 384 kilohertz, 32-bit, high-res audio, and it uses the Qualcomm Auxtic, I never know how to pronounce that, the Qualcomm Auxtic audio codec. We've got the WC-D9-341. So this is just the Qualcomm model. I'm not sure about the Exynos model. And I don't hear many people having complaints about the quality of the audio, although they're still using their external DACs with this if they don't care for what's on board here. What's important to know is that Samsung has really stepped up the experience, and it shows. So now let's move on to talking about some new interface features that we have. But first you can see that we've got Android 8. We've also got the Samsung Experience version 9. And when you go to the home screen, the first thing that I noticed that's different is that if you hold down right here, you can go underneath home screen settings. And there's a new option that's called portrait mode only. Prevent the home screen from rotating to landscape mode. So when I have that checked off, if I go to the home screen, if I rotate it, you can see it's going to change the orientation of my applications, and it will be the same way when I go and I look at applications as well. Samsung wanted this as an interface feature, so just say you're in an app that's landscape. If you go outward, it's going to stay that same landscape orientation. It's just for continuity. But I think what's annoying is that the wallpaper doesn't rotate along with it, and I've tried this with just the default theme as well. And I noticed that if I am moving my phone about, it's going to change the orientation, and I find it to be a little bit annoying. So mostly I just make sure that that isn't allowed. And as we're just sitting here on the home screen, I'm sure you guys noticed my theme. Now, themes isn't anything new, but if you want to know what this particular theme is, if you go underneath themes, you can purchase this. It's called Pixel Game. It's a very Nintendo-esque type of a theme. And I really, really like it. It works really quite well, and for the notification, you get the little bling coin type of notification, so very, very cute. So just in case you wanted to know what that was. Another feature that I found that's quite nifty is underneath Secure Folder. So when you go underneath the settings for Secure Folder, you've got an option for lock type. So go underneath lock type, put my password in, and now there's an option for dedicated fingerprints. So they say set one of your fingerprints to open Secure Folder directly. And now I'm actually using Secure Folder. So I'm able to choose what fingerprint that I want. In this case, it's going to be my left index finger. So when the phone is off, I can actually use that left index finger, and it's going to turn on the phone and bring me right into Secure Folder. So I found that to be pretty cool. Of course, you can disable it, or you can choose a different finger if it starts to annoy you with whatever finger you've chosen previously. Now the last cool little feature I found is underneath edge lighting. It's part of the notifications. So going from the settings, let's go to my text messages and make a little test message to myself. And what you're going to see is we'll get the little pop-up. So let's just say test, go out of it quickly. Watch this, pull down. And you can see when you pull down from the little edge lighting notification, you get an actual multi-window. So you can stay wherever you are. Just say you're watching a movie, or you're inside an application where you really don't want to be bothered and have to go to the full application. You can see that you can just type right from here, send it. You can minimize it if you want. Go back to watching your movie. Of course, you can just make it bigger. You can go to the full app. Or you can just exit out of it entirely. So I've been using that all the time. That's one of the features I found a little bit later on, and I find that extremely useful. So let's try that again. Let's just say I'm underneath a YouTube video. Tap, tap. Go back to my YouTube video. There's the notification. Drag it down. I can type my little message, send it. And I'm right back into the video. So that's actually useful. Now another feature I've seen people express a lot of interest in is using the optical sensor to check your blood pressure. So Samsung has collaborated with the University of California, San Francisco to create the app that's called My Blood Pressure Lab. And they're using this application for blood pressure and stress research. So it's saying that it uses the optical sensor to provide contextualized feedback about participants' blood pressure and stress levels. Now this is only available to people in the United States who are over 18 years of age or older. So you're not going to be able to get this application if you're not in the United States. So they're saying that one of the aims of this study is to optimize the app to provide contextualized and scientifically informed feedback, and also to improve the accuracy of the blood pressure readings from this sensor. So imagine if this could actually become a feature inside of Samsung Health. It's not yet. My bet would be that after looking at this study, they might incorporate it later, depending on what they find. But let's look at the app itself. So keep in mind that in order to get this to work and to have any useful meaning whatsoever, you need to make sure that you're getting a baseline reading from an actual blood pressure cuff. So any Walgreens or CVS pharmacy or whatever pharmacy you can go into, even like a Fred Meyer pharmacy, walk into there and you can get your free blood pressure reading. That way you can include it yourself. So once you enter it in here, it's going to give you that baseline and you can start using it from there. So after giving it my initial blood pressure, it's able to tell me how my blood pressure goes up and down during the day. And then they also want to see how my stress is. So they ask me several questions. I believe this is a 3-week-long study. Now in terms of accuracy, I can see that it's not spot on accurate. It's within a couple of points. And I would say that this is not something I would use for medical grade at the moment. But as far as trends and how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis, maybe it can give you an idea of where your stress levels are depending on what you're doing. And if you're in a crisis situation, for example, this might become useful. So who knows, in the future we might have a pretty darn accurate way of measuring our blood pressure with just this optical sensor here. So we will see. Just know that this feature isn't currently available inside of Samsung Health or outside of the United States. For some last feature bits, we've also got 720p super slow motion video at 940 frames per second. We've got animated GIFs that we can make from the super slow motion videos, which are quite neat, and AR emoji. But I want to cover all the camera features, including camera quality, in its own dedicated video, so stay tuned for that video. What I can say is that these camera features are neat, but non-essential. 940 frames per second is only viable in perfect lighting, and is hard to time or predict the perfect moment. So I find that it's better to just use 240 frames per second video and slow it down in post. Then AR emoji is no match for Animoji because of the much inferior face tracking, though the My Emoji keyboard stickers are cool and I do use those. And lastly, pictures from the camera are very nice. Great color with decent dynamic range and great low light. But too often they are overexposed with overblown highlights in daylight, which just forces me to use the manual mode. So I'm really hoping that Samsung corrects the camera issues in a future update. And I will talk about all of this stuff in some depth in its own video. Now getting into the technical stuff, starting with specs and performance. I have both Snapdragon versions of these devices. So we've got the Snapdragon 845 SoC with the Adreno 630 GPU and either 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now from what I've seen using both of these phones on a daily basis, I can say that these are very, very smooth devices. This is a huge improvement over the Samsung of old. So I am no longer afraid of lagginess in any way. And the performance feels on par with my Pixel phones. So whether using this one or this one, it's been an absolute pleasure to use these devices, and I've grown really quite attached to this one specifically. The extra RAM is a boon for the Galaxy S9 Plus, and it can keep more apps open than the Galaxy S9 can. So the S9 Plus is overall better for multitasking, though the S9 is no slouch whatsoever in that department either. And anyhow, they are both so quick at opening applications that even when apps have to start up again, it's no big deal. I just really wish that they would have included the same amount of RAM in the Galaxy S9 as well, because I have a feeling that the RAM will help keep the performance up in the long run. Taking a look at graphics performance between the S9 and the S9 Plus, from what I can see, they perform the same. I don't see any meaningful differences between them, and both of these devices play games without a hitch. It's been a very smooth experience between them, so these should be able to take anything that you throw at them. So comparing performance over last year using GameBench and GFX Benchmark, the Manhattan Battery Benchmark, you can see that we've got higher peak performance on the Galaxy S9s. Yet after throttling, you can see that it ends up at pretty much similar performance to what we have with the Galaxy S8s. So I thought that was interesting, but I don't play heavy type games for more than 15 minutes or so on a smartphone anyway. That's why I have a PS4 Pro. Then in a real-world graphics test playing Riptide GP2, you can see that the Galaxy S9s will keep that 60 frames per second peak frame rate for much longer than the Galaxy S8s will. So there's a definite improvement in performance over last year. Now for the last technical part of this review, let's talk about these displays, and let's just talk about these specs first. So we've got 5.8-inch and 6.2-inch Quad HD Plus Super AMOLED displays. They are 2960 by 1440, both the same resolution. Although the Galaxy S9 has a greater pixel density than the Galaxy S9 Plus, but really you can't tell any difference. So as you guys have seen in this review, I have 3 different devices to look at. So I've had a really good chance to look at these displays, to measure them, and to really figure out what they're doing. And I can say that these are absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous displays. I'm really happy with what Samsung has done this year. The first thing I noticed is that they are very, very uniform. The color temperature is the same throughout. All 3 of my devices look just this good. And also that pink awful display issue seems to be no more. I don't see any pink on the edges. I don't see any pink splotches like I saw in my Galaxy S8 units. So it looks like Samsung has fixed that issue, and I'm very, very happy. Now between all of them, I can see that there's a little bit of variation in the white points, but it's very, very slight. So let me know what yours look like, but from everything I'm seeing, it's very promising. So let's take a peek at the screen mode settings and talk about the calibrations a little bit. So we've got the basic mode, which is the sRGB calibration standard. This is what you want to use if you need color accuracy, as most consumer content is based upon the sRGB calibration standard. And your screen calibration profile should match the content that you're viewing to get it to look right. Then we've got AMOLED Photo, which is Adobe RGB. Then we've got AMOLED Cinema, which is DCI P3 calibration standard. And then we've got the adaptive display mode, which doesn't adhere to anything, but it's very, very oversaturated. It's really punchy, and a lot of people like it. Plus, you can mess around with the color balance of the screen. Unfortunately, this color balance option is not available on the other color modes that do adhere to some type of calibration standard. Then as far as how well each of these 3 are calibrated to their calibration standards, they're very, very close. The color temperature is just a little bit too warm for these. It should be D65 or 6,500 Kelvin, and it's somewhere around 62 or 6,300 Kelvin instead. And the gamma is just a little bit too high on these modes as well. But still, Samsung has done a pretty admirable job, and they're pretty consistent. These displays get really nice and bright out in direct sunlight. I had no trouble seeing them whatsoever. And they also get very good manual minimum and maximum brightness. Unfortunately, what's keeping these displays from perfection are issues with the grayscale calibration, particularly in dark gray to black, which represents as shadows in an image. What people are noticing over last year is that shadow clipping is worse this year, and I've noticed this too. It can be very distracting in images or movies when you expect to see shadows, but instead get blotches of black. Now don't get me wrong, other OLED displays on the market have variations of these issues as well. It's just that Samsung made a boo-boo this year with the calibration. The Pixel 2 phones are worse though, and Apple actually did the best. The last thing that I want to talk about in this review is battery life and connectivity, or how these function as phones. So the Galaxy S9 Plus has a 3,500 mAh battery, where the Galaxy S9 has a 3,000 mAh battery. These are the same specs as last year. And I'm finding that the Galaxy S9 Plus will last me about 6 hours of on-screen time. This is with a good day-long charge. And the Galaxy S9 lasts about 5 hours. But if I do anything intensive with either of them, such as using the camera or playing games, I find that I need to top them both off during the day. But they can both usually last me through the day if I'm not doing anything really intensive. At least not for too long. But if you want a little bit better battery life, really go for the Galaxy S9 Plus. As for charging, they are both only compatible with Quick Charge 2.0, unfortunately. So they don't charge as quickly as I would want them to, but I suspect that Samsung is being a little bit conservative here, especially with past battery blunders. And when looking at charging rates, the Galaxy S9 Plus can charge at about 1 hour and 45 minutes, where this one trails a little bit behind that. So the charging time isn't terrible, but it's not like phones that can charge up in like an hour. Now, when using these as phones, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which includes Bluetooth 5.0, and GPS all work very, very well. Call quality has sounded great with no issues on either end. So they make great phones, in addition to being these super handheld palm computers. Now, in conclusion, these are awesome devices, and yes, I do like these better than the Galaxy S8 Plus and the Galaxy S8 of last year. They just feel a bit more polished, improved in just the right places without feeling too gimmicky. Performance is fantastic, the speakers are an excellent improvement, the displays are gorgeous, even despite some minor calibration issues. So let's just hope that Samsung improves mostly on how the camera handles highlights and exposure. These phones are very, very close to perfection, and I have become very bonded to my Galaxy S9 Plus here. And I think that the only phone that will tear it out of my hands within these next few months is most likely the Galaxy Note 9. So I've had a very good experience. Now let's just hope that Samsung commits to timely security updates, or I will be compelled to bounce right back to the safety of the iOS environment. Because after everything, security is most important with phones, and if an OEM can't manage to keep their phone up to date, it's no good for me. So this has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified of future videos. I hope that this review was helpful. I hope that it taught you something. Let me know your experiences with the Galaxy S9 and if you're going to get the Galaxy Note 9. So have a good night, everybody.